Corinne was on her lunch break, savouring a heavily sugared latte, when the sky above her rippled like a disturbed pond. One moment the sun perched high, untroubled by clouds. The next, it was as if someone had tweaked the cosmic settings, creating a shimmer of golden light. A sensation of weightlessness passed through her, making her arms prickle. She dropped the coffee cup in surprise, splashing warm liquid across her shoes. People on the busy sidewalk halted in uncertain silence. At first, nothing more happened. The moment passed. Corinne collected herself and leaned down to wipe off her shoes, feeling foolish. Then, just as quickly, phones across the city simultaneously buzzed. People held them up, confused by an unfamiliar app that now glowed on their screens. Its icon was a stylized lamp, a swirl of bright colour drifting from it. Tapping on it produced a jingle, delightful yet odd, carrying a hint of something ancient. An impossibly tall man with bright, smiling eyes seemed to materialize in front of City Hall. He wore loose, shimmering pants and a vest that displayed glittering gold patterns at the hem. Despite his ostentatious appearance, he raised his hands in a friendly wave. A small crowd gathered. The air around him vibrated with possibility. "Good afternoon, dear citizens," he called out, his voice carrying as if delivered through hidden speakers. "I am Amir, and I come with a gift. I assure you, it is for all of you." Corinne took a tentative step forward. People around her paused, uncertain if this flamboyant stranger was part of some elaborate street performance. The man seemed entirely at ease, grin unwavering, his eyes dancing with mischief, yet also profound kindness. "You may now wish for anything," Amir explained, his words mesmerizing. "Simply open the Wish Fulfill app on your phone, speak what you desire, and reality shall bend to your will. I will bring your wishes to life. Within reason, of course." His grin widened. "Try it." At once, 100 murmurs spread through the crowd. Possibly this was a promotional campaign for some new augmented reality game, Corinne thought. But the memory of that shimmering ripple in the sky still burned in her mind. She lifted her phone apprehensively. The Wish Fulfill app glowed invitingly, as if beckoning her to test its promise. Nearby, a teenage boy whispered into his phone. In a flash, the skateboard he held became a sleek hoverboard. Ka-thunk! The board crashed to the ground and hovered a few inches above the pavement, his triumphant whoop echoing through the street. Gasps rose. The man Amir spread his arms, waiting for more. Skeptical, a woman in a sharp business suit punched a command into her phone. Immediately, her briefcase shimmered, morphing into a small fountain that gurgled with fresh coffee. The woman's jaw dropped open. She ran an incredulous hand through the steaming brew. The crowd broke out in excited chatter. More phones came out. Nightmares and wonders sprang to life, fed by fleeting wants and half-baked. Corinne watched as a street vendor's hot dog cart was transformed into a golden chariot drawn by mechanical griffins. Someone grew pointed elf ears on a dare. Another conjured exotic birds to swirl around them in rainbow-colored flocks. Amir roared with laughter, delighted by every new manifestation. He reminded Corinne of an eager child showing off a new toy, inviting everyone to play. She didn't yet dare to open the app. Something about this free-for-all felt reckless, but her tension was overshadowed by awe. From that day on, the city changed in spurts of sudden brilliance. Overnight, downtown's skyline rearranged itself as newly minted millionaires wished up personal towers. Streets spontaneously sprouted floating holographic banners proclaiming personal preferences for everything from sports teams to new diets. Animals, some mythical, some genetically impossible, prowled neon-lit alleys. Hoverboards became common, the hum of their anti-gravity engines merging with the usual city bustle. Every day was different. Every day was bizarre, and each new wave of transformations left Corinne feeling more anxious about what might come next. Yet Amir's intentions seemed good. He set up guidelines. No wishing for outright destruction. he boomed from a holographic billboard that soared above the city. No wishing to harm others, no rewriting people's free will. There were disclaimers in the app too, but those disclaimers were vague, open to interpretation. After all, what was harm to one person might be an unexpected boon to another. Corin's best friend Dee was enthralled by the possibilities. She'd always talked about wanting a perfect singing voice. After some hesitation, she opened Wish Fulfill and spoke her desire. Within seconds, her voice turned lyrical and captivating. Clubs clamoured to book her for shows. The city was alive with new entertainment. She achieved her dream overnight. Corin tried to be happy for her friend, but something gnawed at her. It was all so easy. Her life, once measured in small, steady steps, working toward promotions, saving for vacations, felt overshadowed by the unstoppable magic that bent existence on a whim. Was genuine effort no longer necessary? One morning, on her walk to work, Corin found the sidewalk replaced by translucent crystal. When she peeked down, she saw a mass of swirling clouds through the slab, as if someone had wished the ground itself transparent. She kept her eyes forward, fear gripping the edge of her stomach, and moved quickly. Overhead, an entire corporate office tower was floating, moored to the ground by thick silver chains. A co-worker told her it had been the CEO's idea of streamlining. Basically, the city had become a collection of random fantasies, strung together with barely a thought for how they fit. It was exhilarating and terrifying. The place where she'd grown up was vanishing behind each new layer of conjured novelty. She arrived at her office, a quiet edifice that somehow remained normal enough to conduct business, and found herself navigating around floating desks courtesy of the department manager who thought they should look more modern. A frustrated co-worker was trying to figure out if gravity was optional. Another was sorting through a flurry of multi-hued cats conjured to keep employees company. Corin's boss, Andres, emerged from behind his door, eyes wild. "We can't get anything done if people keep rewriting the environment," he said, slamming a file on her desk. "We're losing track of where our data is stored. Yesterday's server is now a mechanical dragon. The entire network has turned into a labyrinth of illusions. I can't even file a single report without half the form turning into living origami." She tried her best to sound reassuring. "I'll figure out a way to organize things better," she promised, though she had zero idea how to handle the chaos. That evening she took the bus home, yet the bus no longer had wheels nor needed roads. It drifted through the air on glowing thrusters. A mermaid splashed in the fountain at the city square, while a woman sang an orchestral arrangement that sounded like it emanated from the water itself. A neon phoenix soared overhead. To the delight of a rapt crowd, Amir's benevolent presence loomed everywhere, in billboard announcements, in shimmering illusions, in intangible breezes. The genie seemed unstoppable. Corin arrived at her apartment, half dreading the barrage of changes her neighbours might have unleashed. But the lobby looked oddly normal, aside from a single potted plant that had grown large pink polka-dotted leaves. She trudged upstairs. A knock came at her door moments after she'd gotten inside. Standing on the threshold was Amir himself, looking boyish despite his towering form. "Corinne," he said, tilting his head in a polite bow. "May I come in?" Never had she expected a personal visit from the city's resident miracle worker. She found her voice only after a startled pause. "Sure," she managed, stepping aside. He ducked under the doorframe and gazed around her modest living room. "I was in the area. You seem to be one of the few who hasn't used our new app. Why is that?" His tone was kind, free of accusation. Corin warily perched on the arm of her sofa. I guess I don't know what to wish for. And if I'm honest, the whole city is already out of control." Amir looked sympathetic. "I do understand your concerns. I've watched civilizations rise and fall, and I've learned that abrupt changes are never seamless. But I promise my intent is good. This is a chance for everyone to shape their world, not just the powerful. No more unfairness. No more blocked opportunities. Is that really the effect, though? She asked quietly. Just because something's possible doesn't mean we're free from competition or jealousy. Doesn't it just shift the playing field? He considered this with a thoughtful frown. Well, there will always be those who misuse gifts. But it's my hope that most people will manifest joys that uplift everyone. Have faith. And remember, you're allowed to try. You might like it. He patted the air gently, as though smoothing out invisible wrinkles. And in that moment, Corin thought she saw him waver like a flicker in a faulty hologram. Then his form became solid again. "Excuse me," he said. "It takes a lot of energy to keep all these transformations stable." He gave her a final smile and, without opening the door, vanished, leaving behind a faint glow of golden dust. That night, Corin couldn't sleep. Curiosity gnawed at her, although so did caution. What if she tried a small wish, purely experimental? Maybe it would help her judge the situation more fairly. In the still darkness, she opened the Wish Fulfill app and whispered, "I wish my goldfish Timmy could talk." She glanced at the bowl in the corner. Nothing seemed to change. She was about to close the app when a raspy little voice piped up. "Hey, got any flakes? I'm hungry." Corinne screamed, almost knocking the bowl over as she jumped. The tiny fish blinked at her through the glass, swirling his fins impatiently. "Oh my God," she whispered, adrenaline rushing through her. She demanded a few more words from Timmy. He obliged with nonchalant banter. When the shock wore off, she felt an odd bubble of excitement. She had done magic, real magic, from the comfort of her living room. The city might be insane, but oh, how marvelous to make a wish come true. Yet soon she worried. Would Timmy keep talking forever? Could she really hold a conversation with a fish for the rest of his days? What sort of new complications had she introduced into her life? The next morning, she found herself daydreaming about a bigger, more meaningful wish, one that might better everyday life in the city. Something grounded. A far cry from magical coffee fountains or floating buses. Maybe she could create self-replenishing gardens in every neighborhood to solve food shortages or ensure that every building had perfect insulation. However, her day at work got derailed when she discovered the entire HR department had turned into a team of centaurs. They galloped around with reams of paperwork, but their newly formed hooves wreaked havoc on the floating desks, documents scattered around them in swirling chaos. She didn't get a chance to properly reflect until lunch break. And lunch, she realized with a snort, was delivered by an iridescent dragon with a company logo on its flank. The city had become an impossible tapestry, vivid yet precariously balanced. Sitting on a park bench, Corin reopened the app, ignoring the swirl of bizarre new creatures scampering across the grass. She pressed Record Wish. Taking a steady breath, she said, "I wish for each neighborhood to have an eco-friendly farm tower with open access and fresh produce for everyone." No shimmer, no immediate fanfare, just the usual jingle. Then, in the distance, she saw towers rising like bamboo shoots across the landscape. Glassy structures ringed with greenery soared above rooftops. Her heart thumped. She had done it. Suddenly, a ripple passed through the air again. Corin felt the air grow thick. An echo of her own wish reverberated around her, layering on top of other transformations. The swath of farmland towers was a huge boon, yes, but it stressed the city's fragile magic ecosystem. She heard the cracking of reality as swaths of conjurations intersected. Mechanical griffins soared across hydroponic scaffolds, while neon phoenixes battled them overhead. A thunderous crash echoed in the distance, and the ground shook. Alarmed voices rose. People rushed from shops and offices to witness giant vines wrapping around hovering buildings, dragging them downward. The newly formed farmland towers swayed as other conjurations like giant mechanical arms or stone golems reacted unpredictably. The city was a patchwork of illusions, jostled by a fresh wave of cosmic power. Structures pivoted on uncertain foundations. Corinne shoved her phone into her pocket and sprinted toward the chaos, half hoping she could fix it. All over, illusions overlapped, cancelling or distorting each other. Where one devoted cat lover had summoned living cat-shaped clouds, another had conjured subterranean caverns filled with psychedelic plants. The illusions fused together, forming monstrous hybrids that roared skyward. In the swirl of confusion, she saw people panicking despite the wonders surrounding them. "Amir!" she cried out, desperate to summon the genie. Her call seemed to evaporate in the clamour of unbridled magic. People were tapping their phones, trying to solve the crisis with new wishes. "I want the vines gone. I want my building back on the ground. I want those mechanical griffins to vanish." Their wishes clashed. Some cancelled out, others multiplied. An unhinged tapestry of reality threatened to tear itself apart. It took nearly an hour for Amir to arrive. By then, entire blocks had changed form, multiple times. Buildings flickered between whimsical illusions and rubble. A swirling mass of conjured beasts clashed overhead, while the weather itself flickered between lightning storms and sunshine. He soared down from the sky in a burst of golden light, his expression no longer cheerful, but creased with concern. He raised both arms, forming a glowing dome around the city centre, temporarily halting further transformations. The illusions halted, mid-transformation, as if frozen in place. Griffins, phoenixes, and swirling cat trouts were immobilized in mid-air. He descended in front of City Hall, pivoting slowly to address the crowds gathering from every direction. His voice boomed, echoing across the blocks. "I see I've allowed your wishes to spiral beyond control. My magic has collided with too many contradictory desires." He looked genuinely regretful. "I only wanted to share the gift so everyone could have a better life. But in doing so, I gave you unchecked power. This city is fracturing under the strain of so many overlapping illusions." Corinne stepped forward. "Is there a way to fix it?" Amir tilted his head. "I can reset the transformations, but to do so would mean removing all wishes we've made so far. Everything would return to its pre-wish state, every building, every special talent, every fantasy conjured. The city would be as it was." 100 voices erupted. "No, don't take my wings. I can't lose my new business tower. I'll lose my dream job if you reset." The pleas were clamorous, laced with panic. The transformations had become part of everyday life for many. The city had come to rely on them. Undoing them felt like losing a piece of themselves. Corinne swallowed hard. She, too, felt conflicted. Despite all the chaos, some transformations were constructive, like her farmland towers, which were already feeding neighborhoods and offering hope. Some wishes fulfilled genuine needs or long-standing dreams. Andy's singing voice. It was her life now. Amir waited as the crowd's fury and pleas rang out, not certain which path to choose. After a while, he slowly floated upward, voice taking on a more solemn edge. "Yet if I do nothing," he said, "your city will continue to twist and warp at the whim of every contradictory desire. It will be uninhabitable before long." Silence fell. People looked from one another to see who might speak up with an alternative, but no one had a solution. Magic on this scale defied reason, and the consequences were mounting. Already the city's skyline was a chaotic swirl of illusions, partially frozen in odd contortions by Amir's dome of protective stasis. A single reset might be the only stable fix, and the cost might be everyone's precious or trivial illusions. Corinne felt compelled to speak. "Is there a middle way?" Emma shook his head. "Perhaps if the city, as a united whole, made a single wish, one that sets boundaries, fosters growth responsibly. But it would require a consensus of hearts, and from what I gather, your hearts differ on so many things." The crowd murmured their agreement, but how would they gather so many people under a single vision? Freedoms they'd come to cherish might clash with the need for stability. Corinne's gaze swept over the city, trying to find some overarching principle that could unite them all. She stepped forward again, clearing her throat. What if we shape a single citywide wish? That we keep the gifts that promote community well-being, but discard chaos and self-serving illusions that harm or destabilize us. Amir did not shoot the idea down, but his eyes shimmered with caution. That's a broad subjective line. Who decides which illusions are self-serving? It was an excellent point. The crowd shifted uneasily, people casting guilty looks at their own beloved illusions, uncertain if they'd be labelled selfish. Corin pressed on. We examine them, we decide as a collective. We vote, or something. For every new wish, we require the city's input, through a real consensus, or at least majority agreement. That will keep the illusions from becoming too contradictory or extreme. A few scattered nods. We can do that, someone said. We've got the technology to poll everyone. Let's use it to rein in the magic democratically. Amir's face brightened, though faintly. It won't be simple, because even those illusions that one group calls beneficial could be a threat to others. But it's a start. A process rather than an absolute fix. The crowd erupted in conversation. Some were clearly distressed at the idea of having to justify their personal wishes. Others were relieved that there might be an alternative to total reset. Exhausted from the chaos, more people were warming to the idea of structure. Finally, Amir raised his voice again, quieting them. I can weave a new foundation under your city, a modified version of Wish Fulfill that requires community review. When enough citizens collectively approve a wish, it will become reality, provided it aligns with guiding principles of safety and well-being. This might reduce spontaneity, but it would spare the city from tearing itself apart. The hush was profound. The tension in the air felt almost raw. Relief mingled with concern. Fear of losing personal freedom warred with pride in the city's potential for collaboration. No one spoke for a while. Finally, Corinne said softly, "We can't keep going the way we have. Let's try it. Better a city that stands together than one that crumbles alone." People murmured in agreement. Part of Corinne still worried. Democracy was messy and complicated, but what other option did they have? "All right," Amir declared. He raised his arms again. A pillar of light shot into the sky, lighting every corner, every twisted structure, every major transformation. Corin felt the ground tremble. Slowly the illusions began to shift, not by returning to normal, but by freezing in place, turning into stable shapes. The farmland towers stood firm, no longer growing spontaneously. The floating office tower sank down, anchored by well-designed supports instead of silver chains. Sky lanterns formed along the roads, illuminating the city with a gentle, otherworldly glow. Sentient furniture and half-mechanical creatures quieted, adopting docile forms. A hush lingered. Gradually, the protective dome Amir had conjured faded away, revealing an altered city that teetered between the mundane and the fantastical. Now the illusions felt purposeful, if still unusual. Amir floated back to the ground, his shoulders slumping with relief. "There," he said, the edges of his mouth curving into a satisfied smile. "The chaos is subdued. Wish Fulfill will no longer let you conjure personal fantasies on a whim. Instead, you will propose them publicly, debate them, and, if approved, implement them in a stable, sustainable fashion. You will craft your reality together." A wave of conflicting emotions rippled across the crowd. Some cheered, some fumed. Dee, standing a short distance away, looked at Corin, eyes filled with worry. "My singing voice," she whispered. Corin put a comforting hand on her friend's shoulder. "You might get to keep it, if enough people feel it isn't harmful. Your newfound talent could become part of the city's culture." Dee's face brightened, but apprehension lingered. One by one, people began venturing into the restructured city. The tension lessened. Corin walked the streets with Dee, marveling at the stabilized wonders. No longer was every step threatened by instantaneous illusions. The farmland towers had become community-owned produce centers. Mechanical griffins perched quietly on the library roof, as statues, no longer marauding. Instead of clashing illusions, the city seemed a fusion of art and technology, shaped with intention. Over the next days, the city faced the daunting challenge of deciding what illusions to keep. The newly revised Wish Fulfill app required each idea to go through a short but thorough debate. One intangible silver lining emerged. People spoke with each other again, truly spoke, discussing hopes and fears, evaluating good and bad ideas. Neighbourhood councils popped up. Online forums and votes determined which illusions remained and which quietly vanished back into the ether. Amir lingered, offering advice without forcing the city's direction. With a gentleness that belied his immense power, he encouraged them to find a healthier balance. He shuttled between communities, helping them navigate the boundaries of magic. Within a month, the city had a newly democratic approach to enchantment. Giant holographic boards displayed active proposals. People who missed the convenience of floating desks might rally enough support to keep them. Those who liked the whimsical color-changing street lamps proposed them for formal adoption. Ferocious transformations that threatened to devour real estate vanished. The process was messy, filled with disagreements, yet it brought people closer, forging a shared community identity rather than a chaotic free-for-all. Corinne, for her part, found unexpected satisfaction in a new job coordinating some of these city-wide proposals. She discovered that being part of the synergy between hearts and possibilities filled her with a sense of purpose. She watched Dee take the stage at a local music festival, her mesmerizing voice still intact, embraced by the city's vote. They recognized that music was uplifting, not harmful. One evening, Corinne took a walk through the revitalized streets, gazing at tidy orchard parks, spouse-friendly step stools, roof gardens gleaning fresh produce, and the occasional whimsical flight of fancy. A gentle dragon statue that breathed multicolored light, its design perfect for children's imaginations. The city was far from perfect. Arguments still broke out about the next illusions to add or banish, yet it was stable enough that people could sleep without worrying about the ground vanishing beneath them or the sky opening anew kaleidoscopic storms. Instead of fleeting bursts of magic, the city was learning to weave it into the everyday with intention. She found Amir resting by a fountain, half thought in the dim light, as though the day's exertions had worn him thin. She approached quietly. He opened his eyes and nodded, reading her unspoken appreciation. "Thank you," she said, settling next to him on the fountain's edge. "For what?" he asked, voice soft. "I almost wrecked your city." "But you also gave us a chance to become better. Thanks to you, we discovered possibility. We learned to harness magic as a community, not just for ourselves. We're still learning, but that's what cities do, right? They evolve." He offered her a wan smile. "I see beauty in your striving. I'll stay a while longer, in case you need more guidance." "I'm sure we will." She placed a gentle hand on his arm, feeling the energy hum faintly beneath his skin. In the sky above them, small glowing orbs arranged themselves into patterns, likely part of a newly approved city beautification project. The lights danced softly, shimmering with subtle music. Corinne found herself filled with cautious optimism for the future. "Let this be a reminder," Amir said, glancing at the shimmering cityscape. "Unlimited wishes without shared responsibility can lead to chaos. But harnessing magic with collaboration, that is where true wonder resides." Corinne nodded, smiling. Together, they watched the city in flux, no longer a haphazard swirl of illusions, but a skyline shaped, however imperfectly, by collective dreams. Overhead, bright orbs floated in formation, illuminating the new chapter unfolding below.